Hi there, Andre, Ian. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this okay. Um, I've put this together to obviously assist you after hopefully I'll run through this evening, as long as all goes to plan. And obviously, as an emergency measure, if I can't get online still by then you'll be able to review this anyway and pretty much see everything that I hoped you were going to see. So what you've got on the screen to the right here, well, right from my perspective because I've got two screens on the go, but what you're seeing is the system that you're now able to log into. Hopefully Terry's got your user accounts out to you this afternoon. And when you first log in, you'll use the username and password that Terry's given you, which is obviously your name as the username. When it lands, when it comes into the product, it comes in at this derived requirements bid stage. Do obviously let me know by email, or if I can't speak to you later on. And obviously, as you're using this system over the coming weeks, if you need any other columns put in or anything slightly changed, I'm sure it'll only be as you start using it that you want to tweak things in different ways. So there's nonsensical data in here at the moment, but I just put a few rows in each of the tables so that I can test that they were linking together, that sort of thing. So if I just run you through then how things look and feel, and what's been set up in what way. You've landed on the derived requirements bid stage. You've got these different activities across the top of the screen, so I can click through these as I wish to my change log, derived requirements bid stage, etc. There's also some buttons at the top here, so I can go back and forward. So if I go back now, it'll take me back to the change log I was just at, or forward will obviously go back to the screen I was just on. At such time as I've finished editing and making changes in the system, I'll need to click on the save button. It will, and that at the same time will refresh any information out of Comply Pro that other users may have made whilst I've been making my own changes. I can obviously, if I go to close out of the system by clicking the cross, then it will prompt me to save anything if I've made changes and need to do so. At any point, I can, from whatever's on the screen, I can configure a PDF export of that view by clicking this button. If I do that now, then it gives me the choice of either landscape or portrait view. It'll allow me to specify a header or a footer. If I generate the PDF, then that will come up on the screen like so, and then obviously that could be saved off, emailed, or done whatever you want to do with it. So that's the PDF export button. The other two buttons, the config thing, you won't see these because they're administrative buttons that I use. You will see the I button here, which just simply tells you what version you're running, that sort of thing. So you don't really need to pay any attention to that. So these are what I'm referring to as activities across the top, and this is the top section of the screen in this build. I've only used a split screen between top and bottom, but there's about 20 odd different layouts for the screen between different sort of different views. Could be side to side, above and beyond, with a tree type hierarchy to the left, with the details painted to the right. But what you've got here is just what's relevant to the information that you've got set up in here at this point in time. So basing my my start point from the derived requirements, or the we can build up this set in here by inserting rows where we want to. It's possible to import a set of data, so if you've got something that you want to put in here from Excel, I'll happily do that for you. If you could just provide it to me from the Excel worksheet with the headings matching the column headings in the top here, and I'll get that imported into the database for you, just to make sure that the where there's a drop down box in here, for example the object type, it needs to be one of the ones available, it needs to be spelt right, capitalized correct, no extra spaces, or it won't actually find it for the import. Free text boxes of course can just be free text, and if to import dates, they need to be in the spreadsheet in the same format as they're being displayed on the screen here. So the IDs here, these blue highlighted text, is a method of linking. So this is where I've linked, in this case, a source document ID to this particular drive requirement. I've linked an assumption, or two different assumptions to this requirement, a change request, and indeed a hazard. And there's a free text area here for you to make comments as necessary. I could click out to one of these by clicking on the blue area. So for example, if I clicked on CR1 for change request 1, it'll bring the change log into focus at the top section here and show me everything that's linked out from it at the bottom. I can go back to the derived requirement by clicking on the derived requirement blue link here, and that will bring me back to the screen I was just on. So I can use these blue hyperlinks in the screen sections to navigate my way to those modules, or I can indeed click on the activity itself, which will just launch that particular module and bring it into focus. But the only difference is when you link using these blue items here, it will link to that item and highlight that row. So if I look at assumption 2, click through to that, you'll see that A2 is highlighted when it goes through to that screen. And now I can either click back on the drive requirement ID, or I can just click back using the back button to get back to that screen. So we've got different object types in accordance with the list that you've provided. I've given them a backing color, so when one is selected from the list available, then it will display it in that color. Helps to separate out the screen and make it a bit prettier to look at, obviously. The ID itself is auto generating. If you need a specific ID here, like a requirements ID that you self-define, then I can easily put another column in here for the requirement ID for you to, or reference for you to populate accordingly. Just let me know. The detail here, obviously free text, is nonsensical at the moment, but this is obviously the information pertinent to the requirement. You've got, obviously, in your workflow, you want to record that the requirements have been clarified by the client in the bid stage. So of course, there's just a simple yes no drop down here, which is also color coded, so I can select yes or no accordingly. If you want me to set a default value for the field of no, so that it's no until you say yes, then that's fine. And of course, as you get more advanced later, then you can set rules up as to who is able to change all of these different fields from one thing to another, and in what order, and that sort of thing. So I can go back out by selecting the blank item on the bottom of the drop down. You've got an external reference column. I've just popped this in here so you can see how to link out to other places. So you can simply launch a URL, a website here. I've just popped in our home website, so selecting that will actually open up our website. It's just opened up on my other screen. I'll just drag it across so you can see it. So there you go. Close that. You can indeed put a URL in here for that would link you to a document in a document management system, or any other web address, or indeed a locally hosted file. If you put files onto the ComplyPro file share area that you access through another icon at the login, then you can reference that as well, and have that open up. So you type that in, file : backslash and then the file path on the server, but I can give you more details around that should you need to or want to do that. The last modified by is automatically captured in the system, as is the last modified on. So such time as anything's changed in here and it's saved, then that will modify by whoever's using the system and when. You can hide that's automatically captured. You can hide those columns away if you don't wish to see them. There's also columns for that you can display for who created it, created on, and created when, if you want to see that too. And as I say, these are just ID columns for showing the linked information to these particular detailed requirements. As I scroll along, it's just showing a scroll bar because I'm slightly off the screen, but the comments is the last field here. That's free text, and I can type that in, as whatever I need to do. So that's what I've put in the main requirements screen. I'll explain further now a bit about the bottom of the screen, and also about the source requirements. So there's obviously the top box on your screen is for the initial client source documentation. So that can either be referenced by an external link, or it could be a name, or it could even be imported in its statement at its statement level. So I've actually got an activity here for the source requirements. We'll pop in there in a second, but just to explain a bit further, so if I select this item on the screen, so DR2, then as you can see from here, I've explained already, you've got the blue links out to for the appropriate source document, any linked assumptions, any linked change requests, and any linked hazards. So I can click out to these, but I can also see more detail about these if I select the appropriate link tab at the bottom of the screen. So I can see here that SR1 is linked to this item DR2. I can click through to it, or I can look at the linked source requirements tab at the bottom, and it will show me the detail about the item, not just SR1 like here, but it will show me the other that particular row from the source documents or source requirements module, which I can see from this activity here. I can also use this mechanism to map to other source requirements, so it's a many-to-many relationship, so I can do that for all of these others. So the link tab showing linked source requirements will only show those which are linked already to the item selected at the top, but if I choose the tab for all, it will display to me all of the source requirements, or these could be just a reference of a particular document or a statement level set of requirements provided by the client initially. So DR2 is already linked to SR1, as you can see in here, just one, but it is many to many. I've only a couple of items in here, but if I was to select SR2, then I could also link DR2 to SR2 by selecting it, so they're both highlighted, right click either DR2 or SR2, and then link to the existing source requirement, and now you'll see that DR2 is actually linked to both, just like it is to two assumptions as well. To remove a link, you just highlight the one you want to remove a link from, and then right click and remove the link, and then there you see it's now gone. That works similarly for assumptions, hazards, link changes, and you can obviously do it from the other way as well. So as you're creating a change request, you could link it back to a requirement in that way. So you can go from either direction, but just to show, so if I look at all assumptions, it will display to me my entire table of assumptions. If I show linked assumptions, then it will show me only those linked to this particular requirement. And as you see, both assumption 1 and 2 are both linked to DR2. But if I was to select DR3, you'll see that only A1 is linked. So then there's the detail around it. And DR4, obviously there's no currently linked assumptions. So the bottom tabs refresh for the link in the linked version as to which item is selected at the top, but the all tab shows you everything available in that linked module, so that you could choose to highlight a row and map them together or link them together. So I've obviously seen that here's my source requirements, so I can view them both on the screen at the same time, but I can either click on the link here to bring the source requirements module into focus at the top, or I can select the activity at the top of the screen. It's entirely up to you, depends what you're doing in the system at the time. But if I click on the item, then obviously it's bringing the source requirements into focus here, so I can now see these. Now, of course, this is only as I said earlier, a very little bit of data in here at the moment, and it's all nonsensical stuff as well. But it will show me, I can see the traceability to see which other requirements fall below these source requirements, and obviously then understand the dependencies. So if I want to create a new item in any of the tables, I can create a new item at the point below where I'm selected. So if I want to add it on the end, I can right click and insert row after. If I want to add one here, I can right click and insert row after, or before in this case as well. So if I insert row after, here's the box. I'll put client source doc 2 or 3, whatever it needs to be. This will, if I double click, it's grayed out. It's because it's automatically populated on save, and obviously it's not currently linked to any derived requirements, but I can see the tabs at the bottom for linked or all. So I could create a derived requirement below this source requirement if I wish to, simply by selecting it, and obviously it's not linked to any already. I don't want to map it to any other ones that are already in existence, but I can actually create my derived requirements from this point, and then obviously it will fill out the rows here, so I can then choose, right, well, this is a process requirement, here is the detail. Client's clarified at this point, no it's not. That could be set to no by default if you wish. Any external references, this will fill out automatically, and obviously as and when in the process this requirement gets linked to anything else, that will show up in here. So I'd obviously, saving that off, will confirm everything, and it will also have the effect of changing. You'll see the -1, -2 as I create new things. There's like a temporary ID until such time as it's been saved, and then it'll be given the next fixed ID, so that will become SR3, etc. So source requirements, derived requirements, and obviously all of the link associations between them. If I go on to, you'll notice the only difference here at this point between the bid stage and the project stage. Now we can naturally, once you've come to think about other users on this system, you can set up rules and regulations as to what is editable on each view and by different users, and only and that sort of thing. And at the different points in the project, once it reaches the project stage, then the object type might be locked down, as is the detail, that sort of thing. Whatever's necessary. But you'll see that because you only start allocating the work breakdown structure to the requirements in the project stage, and indeed recording the V&V criteria, then those attributes will only show up once you actually view this from a project stage perspective. So here's the WBS, and here's the area to enter your V&V criteria. So if I the WBS work breakdown structure is a multi-select. Here indeed, look, here's that derived requirement that I just created on the on the previous screen. I could of course create them on here as well, by inserting a row after. But the work breakdown structure, double click, here's all the ones that you provided, multi-select, so signaling, civil structures, whatever, and it'll pop that in to the WBS box. The V&V criteria, that's that you could put also a set of choices against that if you wish. It's free text at the moment. It will, but I'm presuming the V&V criteria to mean not that a status for being verified or validated by anyone particular, but what I'm anticipating it's you entering what the actual checks are for the verification and validation itself, of how is it being assessed or checked. So either way, there's a field there now. We can change that to drop downs, multi-selects, to put other fields in place for status changes if that's necessary. So that's the difference between the bid stage and the project stage, just to show you it's exactly the same set of data but just viewed in a different way. When it comes to baselining, that's another conversation really. When you want to baseline the data, that does require at this point a little bit of doors knowledge, and we can go into that in more detail at such time as Jason or one of her colleagues works with you to build a final set of processes and system structure for you to use moving forwards. But you can essentially baseline a set of the module of data, or say the derived requirements at point X. That will then obviously lock into memory and save off that instance before you start progressing, and then you can obviously baseline a number of times. You can then achieve the rollback and to view the information at a particular baseline, indeed make comparisons between the two, and introduce views in Comply Pro to show me let's see show me open up the derived requirements for at baseline 1 or at baseline 2, so to view historically. So there's some other stuff to be done for baselining, but that's it's a little bit deeper than what we could cover as part of this kind of demo and trial few weeks. So then we've got a change log in process here, so I can click through to my change log. There's a couple of rows I've put in here. There's a set of statuses involved. There's no rules at the moment as to who or which roles or which types of people are allowed to propose or accept or reject changes or incorporate them, but that's obviously something that can be done with time, and to whatever rules you want, and indeed whatever statuses you want. So a change can be created in the same way as all the other tables, by right-clicking and inserting a row. I'm guessing create derived requirement because obviously that's the item linked and selected at the bottom here, the link derived requirements tab. So my changes are linked, and you can see the associations with an assumption, a derived requirement, and also a mitigation, because as we'll see in a minute, when you identify a hazard, you then identify mitigations. When you've identified a mitigation or countermeasure, that may well involve a change to requirement to design out that problem. So obviously the mitigation comes into a change. And then obviously the change goes back to the requirement. So there's some circular processes in here that are all linked together. So hopefully logically you're able to follow those through. Indeed there can be some workflow associated with the proposition. So it's proposed by James, however Chris needs to accept that, so it needs to then either be rejected or accepted in here, and then ultimately possibly incorporated into the work package and the change as by somebody else. But those are all finer points to be covered at a later stage when workflow is imposed on these sets of data. So my change log, there we go. Just like before, all of these screens work in the same way, where if you want to link to something or create something, to create an item in the table at the top, right click the create, insert the row at this point to actually create an item in one of the linked tabs at the bottom relevant to this particular item at the top. You have it highlighted, right click, and in this case create a derived requirement, because I'm obviously on the derived requirements tab. If I wanted to create an assumption from this change, I select the assumptions tab and right click and create assumption. So once again, when I'm moving through the system, if I want to go back from here and see the derived requirement, I can highlight the row and look at the link derived requirement. There it is. Or actually go either from here then or here from these blue links back to the table of derived requirements. And obviously the back button brings me back again. So that's the change log. Assumption log, very similar functionality, all the same as I just showed you. I can create an assumption, got relevant different fields. You can easily add some in, put some choices in drop downs, remove some multi-select boxes. You just tell me if you want to add anything else in or change what's here, and I'll be able to do that fairly quickly. Hazard log is there we go. Hazard log has got some data in as well, and this has got a bit of process in here. In that we isolate a hazard. So actually let's create a new hazard at the bottom here. So I'm going to insert row after. Got a new hazard. My cause is here. My hazard is here. Obviously I'm going to indicate this as being a new hazard. Sorry, let's bring this up a little bit. We haven't specified a frequency or impact at this point, or likelihood or severity or probability and cost impact, whatever it needs to be, and indeed the matrices for calculation can be changed to match and fit your requirements, but here it's just a standard 1 to 3, where 3 is bad or likely and 1 is obviously not very likely and good. So we've got a new hazard here. So in a real life workflow, engineers might be able to think of and create new hazards and put them into the hazard log, but the hazard manager would then be notified of a new hazard. That could be an email notification, or to be able to see it on a filtered list of hazards by status when he logs in. But he will then take that from new and then either mark it off as a duplicate if it's something that's already there, or to open it up once it's opened up, to then look at and assess, well, how likely is this going to happen? Oh, very likely. How bad is it if it does happen? What's its impact? Well, it's pretty bad. Okay, so we've essentially ended up with an intolerable risk. Mitigations can now be put in place. So by highlighting the row, I can look at the mitigation tab. There's obviously no mitigations linked to this particular hazard at this point. So I've got the choice now of selecting that tab and creating a new mitigation, which I can do that, my mitigation here. So I can enter that. It's got a status associated, so it can be worked on in draft stage or placed for review on here. The owner can be specified, whatever that is. It'll automatically capture the created on date, because that's that's an auto set field on save, and the action by is the date. So let's just say the 31st of March 2012. So that's down. We can see that this mitigation has been mapped and is linked against this particular hazard. Okay, so there we go. Hazard 3 is a mitigation for that. A change ID. Now, I mentioned a moment ago, you might want to, in a minute, we'll actually create a change request based upon this mitigation, and that's obviously where the ID for that change will appear. I just want to show you as also that we've seen before it's many to many, so I can create new and multiple mitigations if I want, but I can also link and map to an existing mitigation. So you see here, mitigation 1 has got 2 different hazards associated to it, and indeed a change request, but mitigation 2 isn't currently linked to any hazards. Obviously you can choose any one you want, but if I now link this selected hazard with this mitigation, then I've got 2 different mitigations now. One that was existing in the log of mitigations, and one that I've just created. So obviously you can be as many as you need to be. To go through to the mitigation log, then you just need to click onto any of the mitigation links. If I select my new one, mitigation 4, then it will bring into focus the log of mitigations, and it will highlight obviously my the row that I've clicked through from. So it hasn't put in the created on date yet, so obviously I've not saved anything at this point, but I want to see now how I can, if I want to create a change from here, I can do. So obviously this mitigation is selected, but you see there's no link changes to this, but I could map it against an existing change if I wanted, just by selecting it and right clicking and linking, or I can select a new change, or create a new change by going on here, right click, create a change request, blah, whatever the reason is why, and propose that change. Obviously it can be accepted, rejected, incorporated, and proposed by me. You could obviously put in here and capture the current user logged in if you wish to, if that's what you want. I'll change it to that. And accepted by is, could also be the current user who's logged in when it comes to accepting it. The assumption ID, drive requirement ID, is there because sometimes a change, like I say, can be put in effect or based on an assumption, and also the mitigation can be linked against a derived requirement. So we never did that when we recorded this, so that's why that's obviously not popped up in there. Otherwise, if it was based on a requirement, then we can put that in place. So if I go through to this particular change request now and actually bring it into focus, then we've obviously done our mitigation now. We've gone into creating a change on the back of it, let's look at now and bring into focus our change log, which we've seen earlier. Here's my new change. It's actually on the bottom of the table here, but now if we could actually map it against a derived requirement that we choose, so any old one, right click and link to existing derived requirement, and obviously that's now populated in there and mapped against this particular change. That's the requirement associated with what we want to change or what it's referred to. So that is essentially the system that's set up for you. You can feel free to edit text in all the tables. Feel free to feed back to me with by email or call if it's appropriate, that can I add a field called X with these choices in to this particular module, and that and anything else that might crop up like that, and I will obviously make those changes as soon as feasible. But hopefully this run through will give you the ability to use this trial that we've set up for the use over the next 3 or 4 weeks. I'm sure I've shown you before, but just occurred to me to show you the search and the filter boxes. If I want to find, say proposed, or even you can search for actually anything. It doesn't have to be the full word, but when I do that and go through, it will find anywhere in a document that's got propos anywhere. So click through and you can see it's now highlighted everywhere that you can find that. I can also filter using the drop down here, so let's filter by filter to all items that are rejected, and filter, and obviously it's only just going to filter it to that particular one. So there's my search and filter capability. So that's pretty much it now, guys. Hopefully this run through will be useful enough for you to crack on with it. I'll just give Terry a bell now. I've still not got any internet access this afternoon. I just down at the Sainsbury's cafe to make a few calls in a minute. Hopefully I'll be on the phone at least this evening. If I haven't got internet access up, I can just about get it on my dongle, but in a back bedroom, but it's really slow. So I tried connecting earlier and it didn't connect up. But I will make sure I'm available on the phone, and once if that's the case, either way, I should be able to speak to you this evening. Cheers, Ian. Cheers, Andre. Speak to you both soon. Thanks very much.